Hi everyone, this is Nick Pollock here from Roar Lions Roar. While you're here, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that alert bell so you never miss any of our new content. And if you prefer to listen instead of watch, make sure you check us out on your podcast platform of choice where you can subscribe and download each new episode. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Go State!
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this edition. Welcome back to an edition of Roar Lions Roar. I'm your host tonight, Matt Filipovitz, joined by my phenomenal co-host, Mr. Nick Pollock. Nick, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. Have you taken notice of the new scenery behind me here in this room?
I don't have my glasses on, but I think I see a ghost. Is that a witch
above
the ghost?
This
Is that what you're talking about?
Now that we have a 8-month-old, I don't have my own space anymore. So this is now a playroom / my office.
Nice.
So there's a whole that will be ever growing as we continue of his little artwork on the wall back there. So that'll be fun to track.
What are the Penn State related ones? Apologies to our podcast audience. This is just for YouTube only. A reason to go subscribe. Roar Lions Roar on YouTube.
There's actually nothing Penn State in this room anymore aside from our diplomas on the side wall over there. That's it.
You're slacking.
Rob Bolden has been moved upstairs.
You can't see, but I have a framed picture of Matt McGloin right here next to me, so I remember to podcast like a champion today.
There you go. I've a framed and signed Shane McGregor one upstairs.
Wow,
so I get it.
This is the most cursed intro to a podcast we've ever had with Remember Some Quarterbacks, which is fitting because we have a lot of quarterback talk to have today. But we are here on the heels of Penn State's 28-13 win over the Wisconsin Badgers this past weekend. Nittany Lions go into Camp Randall, win by 2 scores in a way that I think none of us saw coming. Again, final score Penn State 28, Wisconsin 13. The defense played phenomenally, but the story of the game is going to be the injuries, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Drew Allar started the game, played the whole first half, finished 14 for 18 for 148 yards. That's 8.2 yards per attempt and 1 touchdown. Really, Nick, I want to talk about this at the top. Allar, I thought, played his best half of football. I think he truly had like 1 incompletion because before he got hurt in a sack when Penn State was in their 2-minute offense. He had 2 of his 4 incompletions after that. One where he just threw it in the ball with the dirt at Catron Allen's feet, and then one where he just couldn't set his feet. Before that, his 2 misses, quote unquote, were a bad drop by Julian Fleming and then 1 honest to goodness miss. So he was playing phenomenal football against a Wisconsin defense that was top 15 in the country in pass defense. So Allar was playing great. After he gets hurt, Bo Pribula comes back. Bo finishes the game 11 for 13 for 98 yards, 7.5 yards per attempt, and 1 touchdown. On the ground, Nittany Lions were led by Catron Allen, 11 carries for 86 yards and 1 touchdown. Nick Singleton, 12 carries, 49 yards. Pribula, 6 carries for 28, and then Allar with 4 carries for 8 yards. I believe only one of them was a sack. He was sacked twice, but the first sack was called back for, I believe, offsides. So in the passing game,
too many men on
the field. Thank you. In the receiving game, Trey Wallace, 5 catches for 67 yards. The Badgers did a pretty good job limiting Tyler Warren to 7 catches for 46 yards. Liam Clifford, 3 for 40. Nick Singleton, 3 for 37. And 1 very impressive touchdown grab. Catron Allen, 4 for 22. Khalil Dinkins, 2 for 18. And the widest open touchdown catch you will ever see. And then Julian Fleming with 1 catch for 16 yards in there as well. Nick, we'll talk about the offense as a whole, but let's talk about the elephant in the room, the injury to Drew Allar. It's Monday as we record this. Penn State has not yet practiced this week. Allar came back out on the field after halftime, tried to give it a go. He never actually stepped in the game, but he did try to warm up. Nick, I think Allar being hurt in this game really creates a really unfortunate overarching storyline as we head into Ohio State week. What's your take on where the Penn State quarterback and also Anthony Donka, who left the game with an injury, where Penn State's offense stands right now with those 2 key players a little bit banged up?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be Ohio State week without something for the Penn State internet to just freak out about for 6 days. So that's par for the course. But I mean, yeah, there's no, like, I there's not a better word than impressed. Like I was so unbelievably surprised and impressed by what Bo Prabula was able to do after he entered the game. Just like obviously we know what he can do as a runner, but some of the throws he made, especially with a little bit of an unconventional throwing motion, like it's a very like quick trigger, quick release type action there.
Hmm.
But I was really impressed by the way he was able to operate the offense and the way that Andy Kotelnicki was able to call the game with him in there. But to your original point, I very much agree that I thought that was, sans maybe the second half of the USC game, which Drew Allar also looked amazing in. He looked incredible against Wisconsin, and I know it. It didn't necessarily feel that way at the break because they only had 7 points. But when you remember the fact that if Julian Fleming catches that wide open third down play, that Drew Allar did a fantastic
Dime
job of waiting,
through a dart.
um, they almost certainly at least get 3 on the board. I'm sure they probably get 7 on the board in that
They were
instance.
cooking on that drive.
And I think everybody feels a lot differently about how that first half went if they're able to, obviously if they're able to go into the break with the lead, everyone would feel a lot different. But I thought he looked outstanding. I was just watching the 60 for 60 again this morning, and just the he just throws the ball so effortlessly, man. It's just so fun and impressive to watch. Like him in command of this offense is just a true pleasure. But you're right. Like there's a there's a bit of a cloud hanging over everything right now because for as great as Bo Prabula played, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the Ohio State preview. For as great as he played, I don't feel super great about their chances to beat Ohio State if he is the quarterback.
I agree.
I
I
don't.
agree
I
with
think
you
they
there,
could
Nick.
certainly compete. Yeah, I certainly think they can compete. I don't think it. I don't think that game is going to be a blowout in either direction. But um, you know, Drew Aller is just elevating his game to an entirely new level right now, and not having him for any amount of time is going to be painful. Not that they can't weather the storm and get through it, but um, it would be a real shame to see him have to miss time after playing a near flawless half of football like he did.
Against his hometown team, no less. Like the team that came in and offered him late with a Penn State offense that
Mhm.
I think is hitting its stride at about the point, Nick, where I think a lot of us felt like they were going to start hitting their stride. Game 6, game 7, game 8. Like it takes time to install an
Yeah.
offense. We learned that with Moorhead. Like it feels like
Mhm.
we're trending that way. On the Anthony Donko front, first of all, I'm very happy that Nolan Rucci got to play a lot in his return to Wisconsin. Like that's just a cool
Yep.
story. Very happy for the guy. I didn't notice him a lot, which is always great. I thought he played fine. I know PFF had him not graded out great. Again, PFF stands for poop, fart, fart. So I'm not going to take that seriously. So the Donko news I'm a bit concerned by. But again, Aller, Donko, and then denied Dennis Sutton as well, like never took their pads off and like went to get evaluated any further after halftime. Like they all stayed on the sideline. Aller, you can see kind of running around a little bit, getting excited when Bo made a couple of really nice plays. Again, we don't know any better. We're just speculating at this point, but it's just a bummer that those two injuries offensively are going to be hanging over, you know, the preview leading up to this game. But we'll get there when we get there. Nick, let's talk Penn State, Wisconsin from the perspective of the Penn State offense. There are some people, and I think we need to split this up in the first half and second half. We kind of already hit on the first half. The running game couldn't really get anything going. I think Singleton is a little bit dinged up. I think his workload kind of reflects that. I'm really expecting him to have a much bigger role against Ohio State by nature of if you're going to beat Ohio State, you kind of have to hit big plays. Again, we'll get there. I'm trying not to look ahead. Um, Aller, I thought, played a very, very strong game, and I thought Andy Kotelnicki called a really good game against Wisconsin in the first half. Allar's touchdown pass to Nick Singleton, first of all, ignore the fact that it was a gorgeous throw. Nick Singleton last year and 2 years ago is not making that catch. That is a
No.
phenomenal grab by the running back. Like, just all the credit in the world to him. I think Trey Wallace is really coming on as teams spend more time focusing on Tyler Warren, I'm noticing Trey Wallace be able to make some more impressive plays and find some more space. Like there was one specific play in the first half where Katron's in, 3 tight ends are in. It's Warren, it's oh my goodness, Luke Reynolds and Khalil Dinkins all lined in a diamond formation. After Katron comes over out of motion, Trey's one-on-one on a
Mhm.
slant. Trey wins that battle. it's those kind of plays where the attention is elsewhere and Trey is going out there and making the most of his opportunities. And even
Side note, how often do you run that formation in CFB 25? Because I love running
so
those diamond
that
plays.
formation has one of my favorite plays where it's a bunch play, so you can run and your single side receiver does a comeback and it's open almost every
Mhm.
time. Or you can also do it where you run quarterback draw, and if it's like 4th and 7, I'll run it a lot because then it gets. Or I'm sorry, 3rd and 7, I'll run it a lot because then it gets your 4th down in a way more manageable position. Andy Kotelnicki, take notes if you want it. But yeah, Nick, when Aller was in, the offense again didn't put up a ton of points, which seems to be the theme of a lot of Penn State first half this year. But I never really felt like Penn State was going to have any trouble moving the football with Aller in when I was watching that game. Are you in the same boat?
Yeah, I agree, and I kinda wanna push back on the I've seen a lot about the narrative of the running game not getting traction, and I felt this in the first half. I felt the same way too watching it
Mhm.
live, but when I was watching the replay today and as I'm going through the drive chart now, I think it's a little overblown.
Okay.
Like, if you go through it, you have a 2nd and 8 Katron Allen for 3 yards. Okay, not great, but then 1st and 10, Katron for 6. 2nd and 5, Katron for 4, manageable, gets you in a manageable 3rd down. 2nd and 1, Nick Singleton runs for a 1st down. 1st and 10, 2-yard run, Nick Singleton. 1st and goal, Katron Allen, 2-yard run. 1st and 10, Katron Allen, 14-yard run. 1st and 10, Nick Singleton, 1-yard run. And then you have a 1-yard run on the 2nd down for Singleton. Then Singleton picks up a 1st down. Then Aller runs for a couple yards. Like and that's it for the half, aside from the drive where Aller got hurt.
Mhm.
Like, they weren't busting off big giant plays, but they were also mainly throwing the football in the first half. Like, I think that the national narrative everywhere I've heard people say this is saying, wow, the run game really opened up when Bo Pribula got me. Yeah, that's because they mostly ran the football. Of course it was gonna that's all they were doing.
Real
Like,
quick,
I think
if you listen to anybody on like a national podcast, and no disrespect to anybody, but if they're telling you they think Bo should start, do not take them seriously. They are not watching Penn State the way like you guys are. The Penn State fan base is
yeah,
watching. Don't listen to them. They have no idea what they're
don't
talking about.
don't hate watch Joel Klatt today like I did, because it wasn't even fun. It just made me mad. So I do think I think that's a bit of a misnomer from this first half. I think it's just like a couple of people kind of said it, and then everyone's like, yeah, yeah, it just kind of like avalanche. I
The
don't think it
backup
was.
quarterback is the most popular guy on campus, man. It rings true.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the run game in the first half was totally
Mhm.
fine. And yeah, the way they were able to move the ball through the air just at will, like you didn't need to use it for anything really more than get a couple yards on 1st down and convert short 3rd
Mhm.
downs. That's all they really needed, and that's what they did.
Yeah, they hummed along. Again, would have liked to have. I'm curious, how we all feel about this. Again, if Fleming makes that catch and if Penn State gets that
Yeah.
touchdown, obviously you had the fumbled exchange on the tush push, which is kind of a bummer. But Aller goes down. Pribula comes in out of halftime. McSorley memes start to flood everybody's timeline. Um, Nick Bo made. I got to give the kid credit. Bo made some throws I did not think he had in him.
Hmm.
A lot of those throws, Nick, I would bet against Bo being able to make again against Ohio State because they were very tight windows. Um, but I got to give the kid credit. That was his moment, and he answered the bell. Like, again, his stat line 11 for 13 for 98 yards. Again, his yards per attempt is almost a full yard lower than Aller. So that kind of tells you the way they're calling the offense. But he does a
Yeah.
really good job on the read option. He holds it on the read option extremely late into the read. And I know he fumbled one. Thankfully, he fell on it. Again, there was one throw to Tyler Warren that I thought he put the ball in danger, and the linebacker just screamed on and basically just missed the chance to pick it off. Like, there are those plays that don't show up in the stat sheet that have me worried about Pribula as like the long-term starter for Penn State. But overall, on the road, a guy who does not have a ton of true like experience running the offense in a pressure situation. Like, Penn State was down when Bo came in, and I got to
Hmm.
give the kid credit. He orchestrated some great drives. He did a great job reading for the most part. I feel like that's a criticism of Bo a lot, is that he just keeps the ball in a lot of reads. I think he did a really good job with his reads this time around. And he clearly has a very good connection with Liam Clifford, because every time Bo is in, I feel like Liam is always jumping off the screen. So A lot to like. I think the offensive line did a very, very good job protecting for Bo and clearing out some really good run lanes with Donko out. Like Donko is their best run blocker, and that Katron Allen touchdown to seal it was unbelievably blocked by everybody involved. So a lot of things to like about when Bo came in. Nick, what were your thoughts on the Penn State second half offense?
I think the main takeaway for me is that Andy Kotelnicki is really good at his job. Because there's no doubt that he, obviously he loves having Drew Allar as his quarterback. Who wouldn't? Like he's the things he's able to do with Drew down the field, like he's able to, and with the way the offensive line is blocked overall this year, I think they're a much better pass blocking unit than run blocking unit.
Oh,
But
100%.
the things that they're able to do, they're able to run long developing routes because one, they know Aller can extend the play in the pocket with good maneuverability inside the pocket. And they know he has the arm to make those throws with, if he needs to, very little step in. So I think that there is no doubt that if you give Andel Kotelnicki the choice, he's going to choose Drew Aller to be his starting quarterback. But the way that he was able to change the game plan and call things for Bo, I think showed the other side of what makes him such an impressive coordinator. Because yeah, he has these, amazing drawn up plays with Drew Allar, but he also, the thing that everyone kept talking about when he got here is like, what is his specialty? His specialty is knowing how to get guys open and keeping things simple for the offense. With a guy like Bo Pribula, who is just doesn't have the same game experience as Ali. He hasn't seen as much from defenses. He's not going to be the guy to kind of go through 5 different spots in his progressions right now. So the ability for Kotelnicki to design plays that really give Bo just, one read. If it's there, great, throw it. If it's not, take off, do your thing. Like that is a huge strength for him. And to Bo's credit, he did a little more than that in this game too. Like the one pass over the middle to Trey Wallace, that was definitely not his first read. He was able to, I think he was trying to go to
He
Warren, if I
was.
remember
He
correctly.
was because there was
Yeah,
one
and then
specific play where it's that wheel route they
it
run
was the
to
wheel route.
Warren a
Yeah.
ton, and Bo put it in a good spot. But again, I think
Mhm.
that there's other guys open, and I think Aller would be the kind of guy who can make that second read.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But that play, some of the plays he was able to extend. Like arguably, I think his play of the game was the completion to Katron Allen on the 3rd and 13, where he had guys closing in on both sides. He was able to just scoot back a little bit, fire off a super unbalanced throw. So one, he knew exactly where Katron Allen was going to be.
Mhm.
He knew where his check down was. And then Katron was able to get up the field 11 yards. They didn't get the first down, but that put them on the 46 and put them into position to really pin them deep. And then 3 plays later, you have the pick 6 by Jalen Reed. So like that, I think was low key maybe Bo's best play of the entire game, because that could have really been a disaster and gotten Penn State behind in the field position
Oh
game,
yeah,
and maybe they don't get back in the field position game if they're not able to flip the field there. So really impressive drive there, really impressive play, really impressive game overall. Like I said, just so pleasantly surprised by what I saw from just I mean, mainly just his accuracy. His ball placement, I thought, was excellent overall.
dude.
We
Oh
know.
my god, there were some throws in there, Nick, where I'm like, there's absolutely no way like he can make that. And I don't want to
Yeah.
sound like a hater, but like the throws were that good, and like we've seen a lot of Bo Pribula throw the football, and like I didn't think he'd be able to fit into that window like 1 out of 10 times. So like to see him do it a couple of
No.
times, like again, I need to see it long term before I believe that's really a part of his game, but. It's Bo Pribula's moment, and I'm happy. I'm so
Yeah.
happy for the kid, a Pennsylvania native, the first Penn State, Pennsylvania quarterback on scholarship from PA in like a decade. Like, that's just the coolest thing, man.
It's such a lazy comparison for so many reasons because they're not from the exact same cookie cutter. But it was really reminiscent of when Trace McSorley had to come into the game against Georgia in the what
Tax
bowl
Slayer
was
Bowl
that? Tax Slayer Bowl.
against Georgia.
Like same kind of thing. Like we had it was a little different because we really hadn't seen Trace McSorley at
No.
all to that point. But some of the throws he made, like the touchdown to Deshaun Hamilton, I want to say. I'll have to
We've
double check
mentioned
myself on that.
Rob Bolden, Matt McGloin. Who did you say? Shane McGregor, and now the 2015 Tax Slayer Bowl. And we're not even 20 minutes in. This is the best.
I just vividly remember some throws he made in that game. I was like,
Who is
wow.
this
Like
kid?
I don't know a
Yeah.
lot about this kid, but I didn't know he had that in
Mhm.
him. So, you know, maybe this is the start of something special for Bo Pribula. I don't think there's any reason he should see the field more than he was if Drew Allar is healthy, but should, maybe it is portending good things going forward for his career at Penn State, or, who knows whether it does continue at Penn State or not. Yeah, just really, really so unbelievably pleasantly surprised, because we've seen Penn State lose this game.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen this James Franklin Penn State team lose this game
Easily.
and they
didn't.
Even after that real bad attempted little wheel-ish route pass to Nick Singleton on his Bo's first drive of the game, I didn't really ever feel worried in this game. Like I still felt like they were going to be totally fine, and this team's got a different feeling.
On the two last things from the Bo point, in the post game interview, he did say like he was ready for this moment because he truly believes in preparing like a starter, and that's such a good culture guy to have in your room. When your backup quarterback is that kind of guy and clearly does what he says he does, that's a guy that everybody should be looking up to in that program. And then did you hear the question that I think it was Joe Smeltzer? I apologize to the beat member if I got it wrong. Asked about Bo's relationship with Andy Kotelnicki.
Oh yeah,
the dude walk around the stadium or around the field.
Oh yeah.
For those who haven't heard, I recommend you go check out the video. But basically, I guess Bo was like doing a lap around the facility, like shirtless, and Andy Kotelnicki saw him, asked if you could go for the walk with him, and I guess Andy just took his shirt off too, and they just did the walk, which is objectively hilarious. So shout out to those guys. And I'm really, again, I'm just so happy for Bo. Like, what a moment, what a game. And now I can't wait for the insufferableness that's going to be. Is Allar going to play? Is Allar not going to play? Nick, what's your gut? Do we see them on the practice field on Wednesday? Have you been to a Penn State Open practice?
Yeah. Have I? Yes, I have.
Okay.
It was quite a while ago, but yeah, because I think I was at one of like the first practices that like Deshaun Hamilton was at. That's how long ago, because he had the big cast on his arm.
It would have been Bill O'Brien's years back then. It wasn't even a Franklin practice yet then, because
no, I don't think I ever saw a Franklin practice. I saw a Bill O'Brien.
All right,
practice,
Franklin practices are always interesting because the quarterbacks are situated straight up right when you walk in. Like if he's there, we'll find out within the first 18 seconds of the media being allowed through those gates.
I think they'll both be out. I mean, all three, if you want to count Grunkmeyer too. I think we'll see all three of them.
Oh, on the Grunk point, people saying like, hey, maybe get Grunk out there. Grunk has one more game to secure the red shirt. Just make it through that, and then if you want to throw him out there, figure it out. That's fine by me.
Yeah. No, I certainly think they'll both be out there, because even if Allar can't play, the injury does not seem severe enough that he has to actually be sitting out right now. Like, he can stand there and deliver like simple, easy throws, like at the very least, just to help the drills run and whatnot and keep his arm fresh. So I don't expect to get any answers whatsoever as to whether or not he will play until
game time
Saturday morning at the earliest.
Yeah. I agree with that.
So yeah,
Nick, I watched this game. I was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida this weekend for my college roommate's bachelor party. Shout out to friend of the show, Jimmy. Good kid.
I was in Fort Lauderdale for a bachelor party 3 months ago.
Nice. Nick, when I was packing, though, I was trying to decide what I should bring. I live in Chicago. It's cold. I wore a sweatshirt to the airport. But then I'm like, I don't want to pack extra, long sleeves, because it's going to be warm. And I was correct. So I packed multiple of my home field apparel Penn State t-shirts in preparation for this game. That's right, folks. It's the Home Field Apparel ad read. They have been our podcast sponsor for this is year number 3 with them, I want to say. Yeah, year 3 with Home Field Apparel. They have been outstanding partners to us, and they make some of the best collegiate apparel in the marketplace today. Hoodies, crew necks, t-shirts, hats. Nick, are you a corduroy hat guy? Am I right that you're into those, or are you anti those?
If it's the right corduroy hat.
I got you. Yeah. I got you. Home Field has corduroy hats, pullovers, bomber jackets, coaches jackets, and they really do take the time to learn the history of your school. They'll dig through the archives to find unique logos, and all of their merch are some of the comfiest things I own. With the holidays coming up, our listeners can get 15% off their first order with promo code RLR24. It makes a great gift for the college sports fan in your life. And again, the promo code is RLR24. Thank you to Home Field for sponsoring this podcast. And Nick, Penn State's defense is really good.
They are, and it's it's not very different, but it's different than the Manny Diaz defenses. Like,
The
it's
Jalen Reed
not
play was
this.
very Diaz-esque, where you have a bunch of guys at the line of
Yeah,
scrimmage on a 3rd and long,
yeah.
and then force the quarterback to make a mistake. Like, I called that out in real
And
time,
they have been doing that.
but
Yeah.
the picks haven't been there, which I feel is like,
Right, 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 right.
what did the Duke didn't Duke have like 5 interceptions last week against SMU and still lost?
I think they might have had 6
Yeah.
turnovers. Yeah.
Yeah. Tough.
That's tough.
Tough.
That's tough. We love you, Manny.
Great hair.
Yeah, it's a different looking defense. The sack numbers aren't there. There's a lot of reasons why that's the case. I personally, I'm not worried about that at all because I think they've done an excellent job collapsing the pockets and creating pressure, and teams are just getting the ball out quickly.
There
Like,
was
there's a
one
reason you have
specific
not seen.
There's one specifically where
Go ahead.
Braden Locke, like you can Todd Blackledge called out in the broadcast, like Braden Locke has the 3 count in his head and he just chucks the ball away. Like he wasn't
Yep.
really in any kind of, threat to be sacked at that point, but the scouting report kind of demands that it's 3 seconds and you get the ball out. And that led to an incompletion. So they're impacting the game in that way.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the big plays that Penn State has allowed this year, there was the one UCLA wheel route play that was a penalty 10 times out of 10 that was not called on a
The
pick.
holding as well.
And the
Mhm.
holding. Yeah. There was the UCLA, the fake end around, really good play, really athletic players at USC. And then I think Woody Marks maybe had one more long run in that game also. Um, but that's it. Like, and I know that Penn State hasn't played, a ton of super high octane offenses, but even bad teams come up with big plays now and again. And this Penn State defense is just suffocating that. Like, they are forcing teams to get rid of the ball so quickly that there's just not chances for things to develop downfield, and they're able to keep everything in front. And sometimes they do miss tackles. This is not the most perfect tackling unit out there.
No.
But
Kobe King is. Key Wheatley is, but some other guys aren't.
yes, yeah. But this has been overall a really solid defense that is not going to lose you football games. They've been complementing the offense perfectly because I think for the first time in a long time, Penn State has an offense that they want, at the end of the game, they want their offense to have the football. That is not the way it has been in years past. They've wanted the defense on the field. So this is not like a top 2 ruin your day from the first snap type defense. It's more of just we're not going to let you do anything. And when you look at things at the end of the game, you're going to be like, dang it. Like, we were not able to move the ball on this team.
Can we talk about the Wisconsin rushing numbers on that point?
Please do.
So
Please
I
do.
will rattle off. First of all, we'll talk Penn State first. It's a Penn State podcast. Key Wheatley, 10 tackles. Elliott Washington, 5 tackles. Jalen Reed, 5 tackles, 0.5 tackle for loss, and the pick 6. Dom DeLuca, 5 tackles. Kobe King, 4 tackles. So those are your leading tacklers. When your top 3 tacklers are in the secondary, kind of tells me you have to throw a lot. So that's probably a good sign that your running game isn't getting anything going. And Nick, let me read you the vaunted Wisconsin rushing attack on the day. Tyree Walker, a very, very, very good football player. 22 carries for 59 yards, 2.7 yards per attempt, and 1 touchdown. Their longest run was on an accidental fake punt by Atticus Bertram's fake name. No way, that's a real person.
There's 2 Atticuses in college football right now that are kickers, and that is enough. We are not allowed to have any more Atticuses in college football.
Unless you're a defensive tackle and you wear a single digit number, in which case you're allowed to do whatever you want because that's dog mode.
And you have to go only by Atticus.
Yeah, true. That's great, Nick. Will Pauling, another running back, 1 carry for 4 yards, and then Darian Dupree, 3 carries for 3 yards. Nick, that is 27 carries for 81 yards and 3 yards per attempt. If you take out the 15-yard accidental fake punt, that number is worse, and the math I can't do. I have a journalism degree. I am so sorry. That's dominant. That's dominance, dude. That is unbelievable. And for just matter of sake, Braden Locke's passing numbers: 22 of 42, 217 yards, 5.2 yards per attempt, and that 1 pick. This is That's good stuff. Also, I apologize. Will Pauling is a wide receiver, not a running back. It was like an end around he got the ball on. So
Yes.
I will
Yeah.
correct myself in real time.
Yeah.
A lot
You
of
could
drops for
see.
that unit too. That Wisconsin team,
Oh
they can't
God,
run the air raid yet, man. You gotta find some
that
people who catch
was.
the ball.
Yeah, they are still um, very much in transition, very miscast right now. The way that they're like, I mean, I get it. Like, if you're Luke Ficklo, if you have this identity you want to build, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
You gotta accept that it might be rough for a little bit. But it was always going to be a long adjustment period going from you know Wisconsin football, like what Wisconsin football is, going to this Phil Longo air raid style. Like that was always going to be a tough
If
adjustment.
I asked like a pretty, into it college football fan to name a Wisconsin football player, I wonder how many hours it would take before they got to a receiver. You could
Man,
just sit there and name
yeah,
players all day. I wonder how long it would take.
it would depend. It would depend what era they're from, because a
Mhm.
lot of people, their first name might be Jared Aberdarius.
Wow. Again, great
But
great name pull in the pod again.
yeah, I mean, he played college football for
He
18
did.
years,
He
so
did.
it's easy to
Before
pull.
COVID eligibility was a thing.
Oh my God, he'd still be playing.
He'd find a way.
Um, um, yeah, I mean, you saw the flashes of Tyree Walker's talent. Like, he's clearly there, but the Penn State defense is just they're so hard to run against. Like, that's why if you go back to USC, that's why USC had to do those things like the fake end round and all that cheap trick stuff. And that's why you're okay with that stuff happening, because teams can't do that all game. Like, you only have so many bullets in that
Don't tell
chamber.
John Donovan you can't just end around your way to a victory.
The names coming out there are just um but just so the way that, and I think Todd Blackledge pointed it out, like there was one run where Walker tried to string it to the outside, and Blackledge was just like, you cannot do that against this defense. That is the worst of any singular offensive play. Anything you do, the absolute worst thing you can do against this Penn State defense is some sort of stretch run or something to the outside like that. They're just so fast, all three levels. I mean, look at Alonzo Ford
Dude,
was darting around the field.
Alonzo
Like,
Ford,
what are you supposed to do?
unbelievable game out of that guy. Also unrelated, you mentioned Todd Black, which I forgot to say it earlier. It's a good thing they did not do Todd's Taste of the Town anymore, because him and Madison, I feel like he would have eaten 900 cheese curds and would have like exploded on the broadcast. Anyway, Alonzo Ford, dude,
We did get that great picture of young
that's
Todd
true.
though during the broadcast. That was
That is
great.
true. Yeah, Nick, Alonzo Ford and Zane Durant, like if you're Ohio State and Will Howard, like the story around him, I feel we'll talk about it later. Whatever. I'll tell that story later. Alonzo Ford and Zane Durant are playing at such a high level, and then you add in Devon J. Thomas and Kazai Izzard and Hakeem Beeman to whatever extent he gives you mostly as a pass rusher at this point. But that unit you cannot run against anymore. With how
Yeah.
Alonzo Ford has come on coming off his injury, with what Zane Durant gives you, like you mentioned, you can't run stretch plays against this defense. Zane Durant is like 40% of the reason why, because he blows up the backside cut with how fast he gets through the line. Like it's crazy what that unit is doing.
I will I as much as I want to, I will hold back talking about the things that I think Penn State's defense can do this upcoming week against the situation going on the left side of Ohio State's line. But suffice to say, I think
Jalen Reed's gonna eat on blitzes, dude.
Zane Durant is going to be a huge part of what they do this weekend. But we will save that. We'll save that for the preview.
That's why you hit subscribe on your podcast platform of choice, so you're alerted when we have new episodes.
Yeah, just this. They are not, by the stars, by the numbers, by the draft prospects. Like, they're not the most talented defense in the country. They're not. But Tom Allen just has them playing for their warts, and they do have warts. Like we said, they're not the best tackling team. They get pressure. They are struggling to finish sacks right now. They've had a couple chances they've missed. They're liable to give up some stuff over the middle right now, but they do such a great job playing as a unit. And it really feels like everyone is very aligned, is, towards what they are supposed to be doing on each play, which is especially impressive considering they don't have their leader out there. They don't have KJ Winston out there. And that's a massive, massive thing for
It's
them.
a key Wheatley
And they've
and
been
Day
able
Lane
to,
have answered that bell. I think Lane is playing.
yeah,
He's really hitting his stride, man.
yeah, I think maybe I was just a couple weeks early on my Day Lane first career interception prediction from a couple episodes ago.
Never wrong, just early.
Hopefully it'll happen soon. That's right. Just like my Jalen Reed first team All Big Ten pick last year. Never wrong, just early.
He's locked that up already, man.
Yeah,
he might win. I
good.
forget what it's like. The Big Ten defensive back of the year was called, but he might win that, man. He's been unbelievable.
Speaking of defensive backs, man, Hunter Wohler for Wisconsin, he's a great player. That dude was talking a lot of trash considering he gave up a one-handed touchdown to Nick Singleton. His team was getting smacked around by a backup quarterback. He was delivering some hits, don't get me wrong. Like, he smacked dudes a couple times, but he was talking a lot of trash for the situation that his defense was in. He's the leader of that team. A lot of trash for his team struggling.
I say dog, though, because that's the most defensive back mindset ever, and you have to have that mindset.
Very much so.
Yeah, you have to have
Very
that
much
mindset.
so.
On the defensive back front, snap counts, the cornerback room has really become this three-man monster. Not that Cam Miller doesn't play a ton, but Jalen Kimber, AJ Harris, Elliott Washington, 48 snaps, 47 snaps, respectfully. Elliott Washington's a really good football player. Like, I called this out, I want to say after like Bowling Green or right after Illinois, that like this dude is something to watch because he is becoming a starter before our eyes. And I think this is the kind of game that kind of cements that. This was,
and he knows it too. That's why he made the switch from 29 to 9.
Who? No, 17 or 18, whatever he was. 18? 16.
Oh, I thought he was in the 20s.
No, Davian Collins was 29, and now Elliott Washington was 16. Actually, shout out to listener Alex Ritrovato, who DM'd me and told me that happened a couple weeks ago. Shout out, Alex. Yeah, the cornerback room is really hitting its stride. And against a Wisconsin team that is trying so hard to become a team that throws the football, for them to do a really good job shutting down that passing attack is a testament to them. So I want to make sure that those guys get their flowers as well, because the story for a lot of people in this game is going to be Alonzo Ford, Kobe King, Smith Vilbert. I thought had a phenomenal game when he got his opportunities. Nick, you made that comment that like this defense like isn't the superstar NFL draft guys, just guys who do their role really well. Like, we're talking about as like the big playmakers in this game. A cornerback from Florida who was like CB5 at the start of the year. Alonzo Ford, a transfer from Old Dominion who was coming off an ACL tear. Smith Vilbert, a sixth-year guy who was a basketball player from Haiti before he came to Penn State. Like, these guys are they're all really good stories, and they are just playing at such a high level under Tom Allen, and I'm really excited to see how it continues to progress. But Nick, do you have any more overall thoughts on the game? Or you want to get to game balls?
I do. I have one more thought because I think it is important to note that, and you touched on it. You touched on Braden Locke's struggles. Penn State's defense was awesome in this game. They did force a lot of mistakes on his part, and they were the key factor for Wisconsin's offense, struggling. But boy, I mean, Braden Locke's receivers, like you mentioned, did not help him. I remember at least 4 drops, maybe 5. Most of them were bad drops. The one where I think it was
the bubble screen. That would have been
I don't remember who was down the field. Whoever caught the ball where Day Lane just smacked him right after that. I don't blame him for that. But they had some really, really bad drops, and Braden Locke just is not it, man. Like, that kid was.
It shouldn't have been him. In fairness to the kid, like it should have been Tyler Van Dyke's show, and it's a bummer that he's got to take his lumps this way, which is never ideal, but works out for Penn State.
If you've listened to this, if you've ever listened to me on this podcast before, you know that I will never criticize a college kid for playing a game and their role in a game. But boy, Braden Locke was awful. He was just awful. It's the only way to spell it out. It was hard to watch at times, really.
Yeah. It was Luke Altmaier, Illinois, Penn State 2023 last year is how I would describe it.
Yeah.
Very wordy way to get to. He played like Luke Altmaier did last year, but I got there. Nick, game balls. You want to go first? You want to do offense, defense, special teams? I know your special teams one because you called it out in our Slack earlier today, and I went back and watched. So I think I know your special teams one is going to be.
Oh, yeah. Let's start with
Yeah.
special teams.
You want to
Yeah.
go first? You want me to go first?
I'll go
Yeah.
first. Gabe Wosu. After that Jalen Reed pick six, and he had the taunting penalty that backed
Did you
him up.
see
So
what he
Gabe
did, by the
Wosu
way,
was
during the
kicking.
taunting penalty?
I from what I saw, I thought he was like celebrating with Penn State
He gave the
fans.
he gave the ball he picked off to his mom in the stands.
So he pulled a straight up draft day
Mm-hmm.
move. That's incredible. He pulled a straight up, what was his name? Straight up Vontae Mack move. That's amazing.
If you play like Jalen Reed, you're allowed to do that once in a while.
That's amazing. Okay, that makes me so happy to know that. I want to pull the clip from that movie, and I just want to recreate it, but use that and just sub in Jalen Reed instead.
Oh, wait, Nick. Speaking of, can we say
Um,
one more thing before we get there? And this is
of
retroactively.
course.
Drew Allar telling a fan or a band member to, pardon my language, if you have kids around, I'm going to swear here. What was it? Shut the fuck up and sit the fuck down.
Yeah.
Love that from him. There's fight in that kid that there wasn't there last year. And that's important
Yeah.
to have out of your quarterback and leader of your team. Nick, game balls.
Very, very much so. Yeah. So Gabe Wosu, after the taunting penalty, deserved or not, funny or not, whatever. Gabe Wosu was kicking off from his own 20, with Penn State now holding a 14-10 lead. Really important moment of the game. You know, if Wisconsin goes down and scores, obviously a very different football game. Gabe Wosu kicked off, and they may have scored on that drive. Actually, that may have been the field goal drive.
It was the field goal drive.
Regardless. Yep. Okay. Regardless, Gabe Wosu kicks off from his own 20. The ball landed, I believe. Now, I wish I had pulled up exactly where I said
the opposing
it landed.
19.
They returned it. I'll say they returned to the 34. I think it landed on like the 16, 17, somewhere around there is where he caught it. That is an absolute monster kick. And I know he did return to their 34. Sure, of course, there's no time for the Gunners to get down there quickly enough to prevent that. But like that very easily could have been Wisconsin starting with the ball on like the 45 or better with a lesser kicker and some worse coverage to go with it. That was a massive, massive kick, and he deserves a lot of kudos for it.
My special teams one, that was going to be mine, Nick, because I'm always on kickoff watch because Jordan Stout made me not think about it ever, and now I'm always thinking about it.
Right.
I'll give it to Ryan Barker. Again, I know he kind of didn't do anything that impressive, but again, 4 for 4 on extra points after the high of the game winner. Consistency, steady Eddie. You love to see it. Shout out to Ryan Barker.
Yeah.
Defense?
Yeah, let's go to defense. Defense, I feel like it's got to be Jalen Reed. Just another week where he shows you the true scope of, you know, everything that he can do defensively. You know, he picked off a pass. He had a half a tackle for loss. He was in on a whole bunch of more plays that he probably didn't register a stat for, but he was just everywhere. And he's going to be so vitally important next week for the Penn State defense. So it was great to see him have a good tune-up performance this week.
Alonzo Ford for me, again, that was DT5. Like if he can keep that up, like, man, him with Zane Durant, I don't know how you run against that front. And what he's going to be able to do to allow Abdul Carter, Amin Vanover, DDS if he's able to go, Smith Vilber, Jalen Reed, Cam Miller, whoever's blitzing off the edge, like Alonzo Ford can be a difference maker for this team. And if you would have said I was saying that in the preseason, I would have said, oh my God, they're 3-4. Like I would have said it was a nightmare if we're talking Alonzo Ford impact, but credit to the kid. He has worked his way back, and shout out to the Penn State, coaching staff and recruiting staff for realizing that a kid on Ricky Ronnie's team in the Sun Belt or Conference USA, whatever conference they were in at that time, could become this kind of player. That's a credit to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Offensively, I feel like I know.
All right, offensively, I am torn because I do think that Kaytron Allen's presence and ability to run the football was a really big boon for Bo Prabula in this game, and I don't think that he's, obviously love Nick Singleton, like you said, clearly hobbled. I don't think that he provides right now. I don't think he would have provided the same security blanket for Bo Prabula in this game. But it's got to be Bo. Just for all the reasons we talked about. Such an impressive performance. Great to see for him. It's got to be him.
Yeah, it's Bo for me as well. Again, it's the Bo Prabula game. Shout out to Bo. Like, led a second half comeback on the road at night at Camp Randall. That's legendary stuff. Like, to keep
Yeah.
a perfect season alive, Penn State is going to make it to November, Nick, undefeated for the second time in my lifetime. Um, so I'm just trying to appreciate that as best as I can. Nick, anything else you want to touch on before we send the folks off into their week? We will be back on Thursday for our Ohio State preview. But anything you want to send the folks off with until then?
I don't think so. I think, try not to drive yourselves crazy following Twitter, trying to figure out whether Drew Allar or Dennis Sutton or Anthony Donker are going to play next
If you
week.
want that news, come back
Um,
here on Thursday and hit subscribe on your
yeah.
podcast platform of choice or YouTube if you're watching there. Promo code RLR24, 15% off your first order.
Yeah. Just come back and listen on Thursday. Yeah. Yeah. No, this was an awesome win. Like I said before, like this is a game Penn State has lost in the past, the very recent past. And they're proving once again that this is a different team, different set of players with a different mindset, and hopefully a different outcome ahead of them going forward.
And if you're interested, I will be going on the Inside the Pylon podcast later tonight. Not that that's relevant because this episode comes out tomorrow, but it'll be live streamed on YouTube tonight. But Inside the Pylon will be my episode there. I'm going to be talking the Penn State season as a whole, recapping Wisconsin a little bit, and then an early preview at Ohio State. That'll be on your podcast platform of choice. Shout out to those guys. They are really cool dudes and do a good job covering the Big Ten. So I will be on that podcast in your feeds today as well, but tomorrow when we're recording this. All right, Nick, I think that's all I got. So for my co-host, Nick Pol. Oh no, I can't do this here. I got to do the outro. I'm not going to edit this out. Be sure to leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice if you like what you heard. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the follow button, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Jump in the comments, talk about the Penn State game with other Penn State fans. Follow us on Twitter over at RLRblog. We will be tweeting all throughout the week with a whole bunch of nonsense because even though we advise against you scrolling Twitter looking for updates, we will be doing the exact same thing because we are sick people. Home field apparel, promo code RLR24. Shout out to 8-0 Indiana. Promo code RLR24 for 15% off your first order. And for my co-host, Nick Polak, I'm Matt Popovitz. Take care, everyone, and go State.
Go State.